I can still remember being 12, getting my first trip in an E-Class coupe. And I remember the seatbelt arms coming out to meet me, how the rear glass also opened down, even though it was only a two-door coupe, and I was just instantly impressed. And here we are, quite a few years later. Mercedes have decided to blend a C-Class coupe with an E-Class coupe, and you get a CLE coupe. Let's take a massive look at it today here on Not Beyond Cars. Let's talk about the exterior first then. The front grille, you won't mistake that it's a Merc. The 3-point star is not protruding out of the car. Pretty sure in some models now you can get that. In the new E-Class, certainly the S-Class, you can spec that as an optional extra. We do have lots of little 3 stars in the grille. You might like that, you might not be too sure. We've got a bit of chrome going on as well. Interesting that Mercedes still feature a bit of chrome in a car where a lot of other brands are dropping chrome. Merc call these digital lights. They have little 4 blue strips that run at the bottom of the unit. There's kind of 2 daytime running light features and a main strip over there as well. And I think they look quite nice. Similarly on wheels, AMG wheels, they're black with a little bit of a brushed aluminium rim right on the edge. These are 19-inch tires, 245 wide, and yes, it is a rear-wheel drive car, so you get a little bit wider on the back. End result, 245s in the front, they're drilled discs, and 275 on the back. But how beautiful and rare is it to have something as sleek and as sexy and as low slung as a 2-door coupe on a channel where we're constantly talking about EVs and SUVs. So it's low slung, it's got a narrow aperture, but the boot's not going to be great, right? Well, 420 litres, it goes quite deep. You can drop those rear seats to give yourself extra space if you are using it. I think the golf clubs may go in at an angle. There's no space underneath the floor of the boot. That's all for the mild hybrid technology, which every engine Mercedes do in this car is. Even the diesel has some form of mild hybrid technology. I'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. And it is electrically opening and closing. It takes up very little of the footprint of the car though. It's just nice and neat. Similarly, in the back space of the car, it's not the hugest space in the world, but it's not strictly a two-seater. There is a bit of room. So first of all, you have these straps that you pull forward and the memory seats will move for easy access into the back. And actually, there's not a bad amount of space now. You can fit your feet and your knees. There's little storage pockets on the side. You get 2 air vents. There's no USB charging back there. You do get a bit of an armrest, and the roof does slope in a little bit depending on how tall you are, but it's genuinely not the worst. You also don't get an armrest for people in the back, and that's a bit of a letdown in a Mercedes. The other thing that's a little bit disappointing is in E-Class coupes of the past, these windows drop down. You had a lovely airflow on a hot day, and they're now fixed. First thing you need to notice is when you close these doors, they are heavy. So if you have little people in your life, be very careful when they're trying to pull themselves with the B-pillar out of the car. Don't forget they're in there. In fact, you will get reminders, but it's very polite. It says, "Excuse me, you may have left your mobile phone in the vehicle." It's extremely posh. But you know, it is a Mercedes, so I wouldn't really expect it to be anything less. Everything is kind of adjusted and tailored for you. You've got these electric options on the doors for the seats. I'm not really convinced on the haptic button setup of the steering wheel. Sometimes you touch the volume, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's the nature of haptics though, they're not great. You have this huge integrated screen then, which is really, really big. And it will bring you into everything you need to do. It also has the same Mercedes as the voice commands. I love they put the driver monitor option for the speed beeps just here. Everything else you can live with. It's the constant changing of the speed beeps that does your head in. And that's it, one touch and it's done. No other menus. Other people should take note of that. It's really excellent. You can mess with the instrument screen depending on how you like that to look. You've got the traditional classic one. You can't help notice the range when you get into this car. And also, Mercedes say this car will do 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres. Today I've bettered it, 5.1. It's the little things, but it still has just under 200 brake on tap, over 400 Newton meters on tap. But then there's the mild hybrid, which gives you an extra 22-ish brake horsepower when needed, and a bit more torque as well. So overtaking is a doddle in this car. You can charge one device down here. It's not the fastest wireless charging device in the world, I'll say that. One USB-C cable plug, couple of drinks holders, more storage in your armrest, 2 further USB-Cs under here, just for good measure. It doesn't have radar cruise as standard, which I thought was strange. You just get old-fashioned. Now when you try and, there's a button for the distance gap between you and the car in front. When you press that, it says it hasn't been purchased yet, but you can purchase it at a later date. Anyway, these 5 cylindrical / almost square looking air vents will brighten up the cabin. Nighttime they have the ambient lighting inside them. There's a lot of little attention to detail. Coming up to junctions, the camera will come on and display what you can see at the windscreen, but I suppose it's just another safety aid, and there's good visibility. It's really high definition quality in that screen and camera as well. You just hear it opening and closing in the boot. So lots of things to keep you busy with. Really well put together. Like the seats, the stitching, the leather, the materials used, top class. Yes, it makes a little bit of noise when you start it up or when it's cold, but really, and I can't overemphasize this, it is extremely quiet otherwise. You really would forget you're driving diesel. In fact, if you want to talk about noise, the loudest part of the noise are these tires on motorway speeds. It does get a little bit noisy then, but the actual diesel acoustics, not a problem. Quite incredible actually how truly refined this car is. Pulling away from a junction then, for example, you floor it. The gear shifts are quick. It's a 4-cylinder engine, but they've done something to it. It doesn't sound quite 4-cylinder. I'm not saying it sounds 6, not even a 5, I don't know, but it doesn't sound as raw as some 4-cylinders can be. Let's leave it at that. Mercedes say the best this car will do is 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres. Well, Mercedes, I've got news for you. I've bettered it. 5.1 on the journey today, which was about 80 kilometres, average speed of 33 kilometres per hour. And just your mix of motorway and country, kind of national roads, twisties, that kind of stuff. So, like, there is no doubt that you could certainly go a chunk of the way across Germany in this car and not think about it. As much as the tyres do give a bit of noise, it's very smooth. Into corners now, here's the steering is a little bit too light for my liking. You can flick it into sport mode to get a bit more weight going on there. But, you know, look, it is compromised in the sense of is it a sports car, but it has a heavier diesel engine up front. There are 3 different petrol options you can get, but I've driven and actually I've owned a diesel 640D. You kind of get the best of both worlds. It still looks great. It has a load of torque, and you won't have to wind it up as much as a petrol engine. And if you're doing lots of cross-country driving, but you like your cars, then I think this is an interesting option. Well, all that said, I suppose the best characteristic about the performance of this car is the torque. You'll overtake things so efficiently, so quickly, and that's, I suppose, where the argument for a diesel in a car like this comes into play, as well as the efficiency of the engine and the fact that you can do such long journeys without having to worry about refueling. Body roll is non-existent. Steering is sharp enough. There's a little bit of feedback. I don't want to overdo that one. So it looks like a sports car. It perhaps doesn't quite drive like a sports car. But I think once you know what you're getting with this car, then you'll be fine with that. Long range, lots of torque, like a total cruiser. You get into this thing, your seats are comfortable, they will heat you if you like, you listen to whatever you want to, and you will just soak up the kilometers in this car. And it just happens to be something that looks really, really good all at the same time. Unfortunately, there's no doubt whatsoever that the writing's on the wall for cars like these, and that's why I think it's actually a great time to just embrace them, enjoy them. Mercedes say this is one of the last cars with an internal combustion engine that they will sell, because in 2025 they will stop investing, and by 2030 there'll be a fully electric brand in Europe for now, unless that changes. But what's not to like? It's gorgeous looking, it's well put together, it's really refined, and it'll do over 1,000 kilometers when you fill it with diesel. And yeah, it's not the most spacious car inside in the world, but if you're a 3-person family, if you're doing well for yourself, you know, you can't take it with you. And for that reason, I really like this. Thank you very much for watching.